All right, you guys, are we live? Let's see what we got here. Okay, cool. So we're going live. This is video 2 of 5. We're going to do these every day this week. I've got Tuesday today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If we can grow this community, I will be happy to do lives once a week with you guys. If anybody does join on this live while it's live, if you can throw me a like and throw me a comment so that I know you're here. And if you have any specific questions, we'll go through Q&A. We'll open up the doors for you guys. For all intents and purposes, today what the subject matter is mania. We need to know as much as we can about this diagnosis in bipolar that we can. Knowledge is power, okay? Knowledge is control. Knowledge is responsibility, ownership. So that's what the subject matter is going to be. The reason I'm doing these lives every day this week is because it is book week launch, and I would love for you guys to go grab a copy. Until June 7th, you can go to Amazon and get it on Kindle for 99 cents only. You do not have to have a Kindle to get it. It's just the ebook that you can kind of download. If you want the paperback copy, it is $8. That's really the lowest we could get it because of printing costs. Go grab that on Amazon. We've already reached a bestseller in specific categories, #1 bestseller. So if you haven't already, go grab that. The link is in or up here, I guess, at the top of this live video. The book, if you don't know, it's called Be Happy or Get the F Out. It's really my story on being diagnosed bipolar. I was hospitalized, if you don't know yet, after a manic episode, landed me on the hospital, subsequently derailed my whole life. After that, I went through a deep, dark depression, and it was really, really hard to get out of. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know this diagnosis. I had no idea what was going to happen. Loss of identity and confidence, independent, all that thing it was just gone. It was like I was bare and crippled and didn't know how to move. And so it's really that story, but it's ultimately kind of a how-to book too. I mean, you don't have to be bipolar for that book to be very helpful. I've been told by multiple people that it helped them, and they're not bipolar. You know, there's a lot of people buying it that are not bipolar. I have a lot of parents buying it for their kids, or reading it to get to know their kids better and their diagnosis if they are bipolar. You could really plug it in for trauma, you know, and how to kind of rebuild your life based on shit that happens. You know, everybody goes through something, right? So it's kind of foundational pieces of stability and getting your life back on track, really the survival mode, then kind of what's next to thriving and kind of really fall in love with being alive. So that's the basis of the book. I hope you go grab your copy. Today we're going to talk about mania. The first thing about mania that you need to know is, you know, there's different stages of mania. There's different types of mania. Now, if you're bipolar 2, you will not have suffered from a manic episode. Bipolar 1 is defined by having at least 1 week-long delirious manic episode. That's my definition of bipolar 1 is like the manic episode derailed your life, right? You can suffer from depression in bipolar 1, of course. It's more dramatic than bipolar 2, but kind of the pros and the cons, if there are any. Bipolar 2 it's easier to treat because it is not so dramatic, but it's harder to diagnose. So some people get diagnosed with the wrong thing. You know, they could be diagnosed with anxiety or depression and really they're bipolar. Bipolar 1 is easier to diagnose because it's very clear what's going on to doctors and psychiatrists, but it's harder to treat because it takes a lot from your brain. It's very traumatic on your brain. You can suffer from blackouts, all that kind of, you can do terrible things in a manic state. You can get aggressive. You can get really, really elated and happy. But what I want to get into is, so a manic episode is different from just like mania. So what are the stages of mania? What I want you guys to realize too, and this was at least what happened with me and what I've heard from other people, mania doesn't just like come on one day. Like there is a progression. And also, a manic thought can be a natural thought, but it just grows and grows and grows into delirium, okay, into delusion. So, the first stage of mania. Now, for bipolar 2 people, and you need to know if you're bipolar 1 or 2. Have you been diagnosed? Like, which one are you? Like, things like that. Those are very standard things that you need to know. And I didn't know that until freaking years later. I was never told that I needed to, whatever. Don't get me started on what I didn't know. So, um, hypomania is comparable to like the Pee Wee. If we're talking about football analogies, that's like the Pee Wee football of mania. So if you're bipolar 2, you would suffer more naturally with depression than mania. So if you're bipolar 2, hypomania can seep in. You might suffer from highs and lows, kind of mixed episodes, things like that. Hypomania is really comparable to somebody having like their best day. So rapid speech, really excitable. You could probably tell if someone's hypomanic, but it's not like a thing that is like alarming. Okay. So hypomania, I equate it to like if you're going on vacation, you're super excited, or you got a promotion, or and you're really excited, really high energy. That's hypomania. Okay. If you're bipolar 1, this can progress. The next stage to mania or to a manic episode would be what's called acute mania. This is where we're entering the world of delusion, euphoria, promiscuity, spending a lot of money, doing things that are just not correct. All right. This is where people will start to notice something's wrong. Um, I know of people that have cheated on their husbands in a manic episode. I know of people who have gotten really aggressive during acute mania, destruction, destructive behavior. So mania is not just like I'm happy, and then depression is like, oh, I'm sad. Like it's much different. Being in acute mania, you can get very angry and aggressive. It can be dangerous. You can spend your life savings within acute mania. I've known of people that get on charities and just give them all their money. And then they wake up and they're like, holy shit, what did I do? Same thing. Okay. So it's delusional. You can believe things are happening that just simply are not. To kind of give you an idea of my progression to the full like manic episode, in acute mania, this is where I believe that Jimmy Fallon was talking to me through the TV. Like I thought I was going to be famous. I had this notion in my head that I was going to be famous, and like all this, like celebrities knew about it. Nobody else did. And that's delusion. I thought that I was going to be like the next Dr. Phil, and Oprah was going to do a discovery on me, and we were going to have a parade in my hometown. And that's delusion, and it's not, it's not schizophrenia, which they thought that I was either bipolar or schizophrenic because they couldn't figure out if I was talking to someone in my head or if I was talking out loud to people. So schizophrenia, and that is not my lane. I'm not going to talk on schizophrenia, but from what I understand, schizophrenia is, you would hear kind of voices or people telling you what to do and things like that, where bipolar is it's like utter delusion. You believe that I believe that Jimmy Fallon was talking to me through the TV. I believe that the nurse at the hospital was Dr. Phil's son. Like that's delusion. So that's where we are. Now, as it progresses, if you don't get a handle on it, we enter what's called delirious mania. So Pee Wee football, hypomania. Acute mania, college football. Now we are entering the world of delirious mania, which is like the Super Bowl of mania. Delirious mania, I saw the definition just on Google. And if I have a viewer right now, go ahead and comment or like. And if you want to ask any kind of questions at all, be happy to. Delirious mania, I looked up the definition and I was like, oh my gosh, that was me in the hospital. So it's where you are completely out of touch with reality. Okay. There was something that was said, and it was like, you're not even conscious of reality at all. You're out of touch with reality. And you're delirious. Okay, so that would be that would have been me in the hospital, because when all this transpired, I was in my apartment. My parents knew something was wrong, acute mania, talking to the TV, thinking I'm famous, emailing Dr. Phil's website, thinking I'm going to be the next Dr. Phil. That's delusion. Then we go to when I was in the hospital, I was completely out of touch with everything. I had no idea that I was even in a hospital, really. I guess I did, but I thought it was all part of the plan. I thought that the cops took me there because they needed to get like do research on me, and I was in the hospital room like banging on the walls because I thought like my friends and family were out there waiting on me to do a parade. I thought that the nurse who was like the orderly behind like the partition or whatever, I thought he was Dr. Phil's son, and I thought it was all part of the plan. I was like, okay, cool. So he's doing his research. He's going to report back to his dad. Then, if you all haven't heard this before, I told you guys this in a different live, but this is delirious. So then I saw a lady that had Oprah's height and build. She was African American. She had like shorter hair. She was like her age. And I was like, but she's in nurse's attire. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, so Oprah's here doing research on me. Oprah Winfrey is at Louisville Hospital doing research on you. Like, there's no conscious thought of like how nuts this is. But I thought it was all part of the plan. So Oprah's doing her research on me. Dr. Phil's son is there. Like, they're going to do this discovery. Cool. Like, this is where I arrive in my being famous career. Okay. Then in that same state, there was a lady in the waiting room with me, like another patient. And I believe she was like Michael Jackson reincarnated. Don't know where Michael Jackson came from. She was African American. She was skinny like Michael Jackson was. But for some reason, I thought she like embodied his spirit, and she was that. It was wild. And Michael Jackson was dead at this time. He had died a year before. Like, it was freaking crazy. That is delirious. That is delirium and being completely out of touch with consciousness. Like, I'm conscious, I'm living, but I have no idea. I'm out of touch, and I had no idea that like my parents had called the cops and everybody was worried about me and like all this stuff. And then when I got to the hospital, I still thought, I thought my psychiatrist was Britney Spears' dad. Like, I had no idea. It was wild. I just thought that I was like at some place, and like, I don't know. It was crazy, literally. And I have the right to say that because I went through it. So that's this. Those are the stages of mania. So hypomania, acute, delirious, and that's where you can imagine that your life can be derailed based on the side effects of that manic episode. So for some people, they might ruin their house. I've known people that have like made holes in the walls from a manic episode. I know people that get really, really angry and aggressive, and like their parents don't know how to deal with them, or their family members or loved ones or spouses. So that's what we're getting into. Now, with mania, what we need to understand too is, let me get a sip of water, you all. I get so thirsty. What we want to understand with mania is, I just lost my train of thought. Let me look at my notes. Oh, anxiety versus mania. Anxiety is not the same thing as mania. So a lot of the times it can feel maybe similar, but I know the difference between when I have mad anxiety or when a panic attack is coming on versus mania. And I put these two in this category because the coping skills are a little bit the same. The coping skills are a little bit like each other, but you need to know, am I doing a coping skill for mania or am I doing a coping skill for anxiety? So the mindset is still different, and you need to identify which one it is. So for instance, for me, I know that I have anxiety when my heart is pounding and I feel nervous and uneasy. I am uncomfortable and my hands start shaking. I know that right then I need to make sure that I take my anxiety. I have like spot treatment anxiety pills that I can take that kind of just slow me down a little bit because I'm like hyped up a little bit. And then I make sure that I really work on breathing techniques. There's all kinds of techniques that you can look up for like breathing, because there's something to be said about centering your body again. Okay. So knowing how you feel when anxiety comes on versus mania. I know I'm getting a little bit manic when I start talking really fast, where there's like no slow down, where it's like the Energizer Bunny, and I'm like, like that's what mania is like. You know, if you've been manic, you understand. And so I know when I start to feel like that, and like the energy is not coming down, if I'm not getting a lot of sleep at night and I still have way too much energy, like something is not right. So, as a human, we need to make sure that we're getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night so that we can be productive in our lives. Now, with mania, mania tells you, girl, you don't need sleep, you don't need food, you don't need nothing. You just need to talk and do all the things. So that's where we need to know how to like reel that back in, because I now live my life in a way that I never want a manic episode to happen again, because it will derail and mess up my whole life. So it's really, really important to identify these differences and identify how you feel when mania starts coming on, so that we can reel it back in before it gets too crazy. Before we fly to the sun, we need to like level out. So what I do if mania comes on, it very much kind of similar to anxiety. I first make sure that I have taken my meds, and I'm talking about my bipolar medicine, because that's what is ultimately the mood stabilizer every day. So I've got it right next to my desk. You need to make it very easy for you to remember your meds. Like if I was on birth control, I'd skip pills all the time. But I have it right here next to me, and I'm like, gotta take my meds today. I am adamant about taking medication, but not before you have talked to a trusted psychiatrist, you have tested it out, and you have been diagnosed with the right disorder. So I'm not over here saying, go get on meds, go get on meds. Not at all. I believe in medication because I know it worked for me. I know it works for a lot of other people if you find the right medications for your brain and your body. And it's a process to work that out. It took me 2 full years to find the right meds, the right dosages that then leveled me out and made me have a comeback season. Okay. But it is not the end all be all. Meds help you get level so you're not like way up here and like the pendulum is way too much. We don't want to swing way up here and swing way down here. We want to be like nice, and you know, bipolar gives a little bit of character to the day, right? So that's what we want to get to. Now, with mania, what I do, so first meds. Second, spot treatment, anxiety meds, because that, again, it just kind of slows my heart rate, slows me down a little bit. I do not take those every day, and I'm not going to share with you what I take. It's not my business to tell you. It's not your business. This is what's right for you. The other thing with mania that you can do is there are supplements. Now, there's supplements that can give you the right energy to maybe come up from depression, but there's also supplements that can kind of level you out, kind of slow you down a little bit. So do some research on that. There's vitamins, there's supplements you can take to kind of level. Now, the next phase would be taking into account what we're doing outside of just like meds. How are we living our life at present? Because is there something that triggered mania to come on? There can be stressors that happen. Like for me, when my mania came on, I was living a fast life. I was working all the time. I was going to school full time. I was partying full time. And I was smoking a lot of weed. And it made that mania just come on freaking naturally and fast. So take into account, what are you doing in your daily life that might have triggered mania? Now, I'm not saying this is your fault. None of that. But we need to take ownership and responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, are we drinking and drugging? What are you doing? And also, sleep. That is huge. If you know you're getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep at night and you're rolling in the day, meaning you have way too much energy, something is not right. We should not have that much energy when our bodies only get 2 to 4 hours of sleep at night. When I was in the manic episode, I wasn't sleeping at all. I mean, I lost probably 20 pounds in like 2 weeks. Because I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping, didn't need sleep, didn't need food. Like that's a problem. So identifying that first is so important so we don't fly off the handle. Now, the next thing is kind of routine. Where can I go back to like level? I find just in a general sense, I love floating. If you guys have access to a float tank, it's freaking awesome because it just like calms your body down. Now, some people don't like it. Some people don't like the sensory like deprivation and like the still whatever. I really like it. Those are things that you can just do every day. Exercise is really good too. Exercise, I found two things though. Exercise can be really good for mania because it can naturally get that energy out and you can make your body tired. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to turn off your brain though. Okay? So you can still be manic and work out all the time. And sometimes it's kind of a con because working out gives you natural endorphins. So it can actually increase the mania. So be careful and see what works for you. The other thing is literally slowing down your body. I find this works really well. Anxiety, I literally breathing into a paper bag. It's wild. It really works. I don't know what it is, but it like helps you focus on your breathing. I used to do that a lot with anxiety. Mania, sitting flat on the floor, like back to the floor. If you have a hard surface, like lay on your kitchen floor. I don't know what it is, but it like automatically like calms you down. It's like being level and being flat on a flat surface. What I find is like putting your hands up and like laying down flat physically. I don't know what it is. And focusing on breathing. You can focus on kind of breathing in for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, or holding it. And what this does is it simply slows your body down and it makes you focus on one thing. Because mania, there's 1,000 things going on. It makes you focus on one thing, and that is breathing. Calm down, okay? The other thing that I find works really well for mania is silence, like meditation. So I do this every day because I think setting up your day in a way that kind of wards off mania is how we need to live our life. So you want to make that a routine. But when you find yourself kind of hinging into mania, is that even a word, hinging? I don't know. But when you feel that mania coming on, like go back to basics. What is my routine? Meds, supplements, breathe, slow down, and make sure we reel that back in. Now, if it's to a point where we need to make an appointment with a psychiatrist, let's get on that because sometimes we need some outside help. Call somebody that knows about mania. If you have a support system or whatever. But really, part of all this management is having trusted doctors, therapy, otherwise, psychiatrists, things like that. One time, I think I talked about this yesterday, but one time I was going through highs and lows where it was odd. I at that time in my life, I thought I had bipolar pretty nailed. I had been bipolar for about 10 years. And for the last few weeks, I was going through really high highs and really low lows. And I thought I needed to admit myself again. So I was like, shit, what's going on? Call my psychiatrist. He asks me about my meds. Turns out I had like stockpiled all my meds. I would like get prescriptions when I didn't really need them. So if the apocalypse happened, I would have meds. Like that was my like state of mind. And my meds were expired. They were from like years before. Now, make sure your meds are still effective. I mean, that's step one. Are my meds still effective? And you can get that done and figure that out with blood work. How is it affecting your system? But is it still affecting your moods and things like that and keeping you level? So that's what your psychiatrist can help you with. The silence and meditation is really, really good because, again, I don't know what it is, but it's something about silence that centers you. It centers your focus and it centers your mind. So that's what we're really trying to do with mania. Let me look at my notes to make sure. So solutions for mania, knowing your triggers. A lot of the time in these support groups that I'm a part of, I don't necessarily get in there and like comment. Sometimes I might, but what I find a lot are people asking really the wrong questions. They're asking, it would be like this. It would be like us having back pain, and this is what I hate about the health system, don't get me started. It's like us having back pain and then putting a Band-Aid on it with like a pain pill. Well, we need to understand what's causing the back pain. Is there a solution for the back pain? Like, is it your posture every day? Is that what's causing the back pain? Did you sprain some? What is it? So, like, when you feel mania, or if you're manic, if you know you're manic, the wrong questions are, how do I stop spending money when I'm manic? How do I stop doing XYZ when I'm manic? Yes, we don't want to do that stuff, but the question is not how to treat the freaking side effect of mania. It's how to get out of mania. Like that's what the right question is, you all. So we need to make sure that yes, we don't want to spend our life savings when we're manic, for sure. But the bigger idea is, how do I come down from this thing to get back to living my life? That's the question. So if we know enough, if we identify, is it mania, is it anxiety? If we identify triggers, onsets, what has happened in the past to trigger mania, don't do that anymore. Toxic relationships can trigger mania. Trauma can trigger mania. I know of a girl who lost her dad, and that here's the thing. If you're bipolar, like, you can be bipolar, but not have an episode until something triggers it. So, like, for me, I'm sure, I guess I was bipolar, right? But what triggered it was like my lifestyle, and it manifested, right? So you could be bipolar, but not have an episode till you're 35 or something like that. So understanding what has triggered it in the past to make sure that that doesn't happen again, or we can combat that. So what my whole methodology is like, we have to be intentional and premeditated every day to fight this thing. I truly believe, well, I don't even believe, I freaking know that we as humans can be stronger than this disorder, because I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, took it back. I know we can. I think a lot of people give bipolar, like, they put it on this pedestal and they're like, I'm bipolar, it's debilitating, I can't live a normal life. And here's the thing, it can be debilitating. It can ruin your life. However, because it has debilitated me, it has ruined my life. But I know it doesn't have to continue to be debilitating. I know it doesn't have to continue to ruin your life. Because if we take control, knowledge is power. Understand diagnosis, understand triggers, onsets, understand how you feel if mania comes on. Understand how to be intentional every single day so that we can live in a way that we're naturally combating it. We're naturally, like, making it go away or get farther and farther from us, so the mania doesn't come on as fast and it doesn't come on as dramatic. And what we can do is, if we do feel it come on, we have a solution to get out of it. Now, there's a lot of testing you can do, right? Like, I didn't know the exact formula for me to come out of mania until years later. What works for me might be a little bit different from you, but now you have some kind of tools in your hip pocket that you can try. Talk to other people that have been manic before that got out of it. Talk to people who are where you want to be, and what they did, go implement it. Now, everything that I have done has been doctor approved. I've read about it. I've read books from doctors. I've used my own doctors, all this. I would never, ever, ever tell you something that was not, like, doctor approved. Okay. So be aware of that, and don't even take this as Bible. Like, I'm telling you this out of experience. I know that I'm an expert because I've lived it, but you want to get other opinions. You want to be diagnosed the right way. You want to talk to a doctor. I do trust doctors if they're right for you, and if they diagnose the right disorder. Now, it is going to be up to you to do daily check-ins, to talk about your mood swings, because the doctor is not going to know. It's not one size fits all. Meds are not one size fits all. Things are different for different people, so that the doctor's not necessarily going to know that. Just because one med doesn't work for you doesn't mean all meds suck, okay? There's a lot of, I think, walls up about medication. I hated the fact that I was going to have to be on meds my whole life to be okay. But at the end of the day, I have a chemical imbalance, and that's fine. And, I know that the meds work for me. So those are kind of some tips and strategies you can use for mania specifically. knowing as much as we can about this disorder. Tomorrow, we're going to go over depression. That might be a really popular one because I know a lot of people struggle with depression, bipolar or not. Um, I want to open this to you guys. You can join my Facebook group. It's Ballin' and Bipolar Hour Support Space. You can follow me on this channel as well. You'll get updates on any lives I might be doing. Lots of great content for you. Remember to go grab my book, Be Happy or Get the F Out, before Friday. It's on sale, 99 cents Kindle version. You don't have to have a Kindle to get the Kindle version, or you can get the paperback at $8. The other thing I wanted to mention, I've got a podcast. It's Ballin' and Bipolar, any outlet. I've got like 30 episodes now. That's a really good source of really good concrete information for you as well if you listen to podcasts. I will be back on tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern. We're going to talk about depression. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you're doing okay out there. I love you guys and all the support. But keep trudging forward. You know, if you're not balling yet, you can be, you will be. I know you can. We just need the right knowledge. We need the right intentionality. We need the right tools. So go ahead, and I hope I see you out there.